Welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about the horrible practice of trying to kill the ego. So there's a right way to think about this. There is a healthy practice in there, and there's wonderful ways to make this horribly wrong. And so let's get into that. Let's try and understand, what is this practice actually trying to accomplish? How can it go wrong? How can we avoid going wrong? Keeping that clear so we don't fall into some spiritual egoic traps. So let's get into it. So a very well-intentioned soul sent me this email, and I want to read some excerpts from it. This is the complication with telling somebody, go kill your ego. This is how it can go wrong. I have been having issues with an awareness practice that are making me feel like I'm losing my mind. I read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, which is a manifesto on how the human ego is a significant source of suffering and pain in the world. He teaches that by becoming aware of our egos, that we can transcend them. That's the word, transcendence. Yes, absolutely. Or something. Anyways, he says that all thoughts that use I or my or you are of the ego. So what is happening is that when I'm thinking, a thought pops up into my head, I go, oh, that's ego, and there is a brief moment where I feel a bit better and more present. But then another thought will pop up and I'll have to say it again. Or a negative emotion will arise and I'll use the technique to essentially clear that emotion. I keep doing it because that brief flash of goodness or awareness after I say it is enjoyable. But it also seems like I'm doing a spiritual bypass technique. So he's realizing that it's not working correctly for him. There's something there, and yet it's creating a spiritual bypass, or the idea of progress without actual progress. And here's the problem. What this leaves me with is no identity, no self, and the inability to think with I or my. Now I am not my internal monologue, and my sense of identity is leaving me questioning the validity of my own name. I can't seem to stop doing this technique because Eckhart says the ego will give reasons as to why you should stay unawakened. So the inner voice, even my own voice, if it says not to do it, means it is the ego trying to get me to stay out of the level of identification with the form, meaning I should say that's ego. And so now he's stuck in a continual loop. I can't be the ego, and yet I want to stop the practice because it doesn't feel right to me anymore. It's not working correctly, and I'm having negative results. And now I'm being told I have to keep doing the practice, or it's my ego which is trying to get me to stop the practice. So I'm getting bad results, but if I quit, it could be possibly worse for me. What a conundrum, right? It's created one big loop in my mind. I feel totally insane right now from this, but even writing I feels means it's my ego, so it's freaking me out. If the voice that says I feel is not my own voice, then who am I? I've been going in circles with these kind of things, and the problem is I'm either totally convinced or I'm totally not. I'm either on team, that's ego, as a path to enlightenment, or I go back to ordinary, I, me, mine, and just proceed to go about thinking normally. But Eckhart Tolle says the mind must be abandoned and thinking with it. So I see this as a hindrance to my spiritual path, and it leads me right back to this is the ego thing. So one huge loop after another, right? First of all, whenever you have a practice and it's not going well for you, stop. just stop for a little while, okay? Just stop and take a break. It doesn't mean you can't come back. Just stop for a while, give yourself a break, reassess yourself, see if there's something else you can do in the meantime. Be gentle, be kind with yourself. You've got this life, right? Take care of yourself. Be good to yourself. And that goodness that's inside of you will spread out to other people. And so you're not only taking care of yourself, you're taking care of those people who are around you. So what was my advice to this wonderful soul? Oh my God, stop that horrible practice. Go on my channel, do heart rate variability resonance, and just leave that whole trash on the side, okay? By the way, this has nothing to do with Eckhart Tolle. I think he's absolutely great. Now that we got the dramatics out of the way, what are they really trying to describe here? What is going on with Kill the Ego? Now, first of all, I think it's a big misunderstanding about what exactly the ego is. And here, the idea of the ego comes from Freud. Freud was the big front runner for the ego. So what does Freud say about the ego? Well, he says you not only have an ego, you have an id. So you have an id, and that's the part of you that's, I just want it, right? That's the cookie monster inside of us. And then we have the superego, which is kind of our higher ideals about what we should and should not be doing in our lives, according to Freud. And then somewhere in the middle, we have an arbitrator between I want, and the higher ideals, right? So we've got an in-between, and that is the ego. So which one of these are you going to get rid of and kill? Are you going to kill the id? How are you going to kill the id when you're living in a body and you have bodily needs and bodily functions every single day of your life? You're going to just leave that? Good luck. I don't think it's going to happen correctly the way that you think it might. Then we have the arbitrator, the ego in the center. Is that the one that you're going to get rid of? I don't think you want to get rid of the arbitrator that's trying to arbitrate between your higher ideals and your lower needs of functionality in the body. So probably not a good idea to get rid of that one. Are you going to get rid of the superego and your higher ideals? Of course not, because this is actually already in Freudian psychology, we have levels of consciousness which are being described. And what we're actually trying to do, which even Freud is trying to describe, is that we are transcending one level to go into a new level of understanding and consciousness. That's the correct idea, this idea of transcendence, right? And so it's not that you want to eliminate your ego. That's ridiculous. It's that you want to wear the ego very loosely. You want to transcend it most of the time, or have the ability to direct it more easily from the superego, if we were talking to Freud. Now, if we were talking to Jung, he would say that's actually the higher self. The higher self is bleeding through the ego and directing you and giving you this inspiration and giving you this bliss and giving you this direction in your life. And so you want to listen for that. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy your life, enjoy a chocolate shake or an apple pie, or enjoy being with your family and having a family movie together. Those are all beautiful things. And yet the ego and the id can enjoy those things. And it doesn't make them wrong. They're quite good, actually. They're very good for us. So we can enjoy all of those things, and yet in our spiritual lives, we would like to transcend and touch on that higher self ideal. We would like to grow into that, reach up and pull it into ourselves, or allow ourselves to get sucked into that momentarily. And so we're heading into the realm of the yogi, aren't we? And so the yogi says, well, I'm going to leave behind momentarily the lower self and I'm going to go into the higher self. I'm going to go into the non-dual state. I'm going to go into the samadhi, union, right? I'm going to go into that state. And when I do, I'm going to momentarily leave the lower self behind. But then I'm going to come back to it. And not only that, after the samadhi comes the sahaja samadhi. That means the natural samadhi. That means you're walking around in your day. You're not sitting down, you're not meditating, you're not contemplating, you're just in a very inspired state, walking around in your life, and all of a sudden the doors will open and you will have a samadhi while you're walking around. That is the sahaja samadhi. And it's an integration between the lower self and the higher self. They're coming together, they're communicating in that moment. Even before that, even before the sahaja samadhi, you can be walking around your day and have a download, which is an integration of the higher self and the lower self as you're walking around in your day. And so the samadhi does not finish the story. Just touching the higher self does not finish the story. Just getting sucked into and going into the non-dual state and going into samadhi does not finish out the ego. You're going to come back to it, and it's going to continue to integrate with the higher self and process and grow and learn and expand. And we're just expanding and transcending and expanding and transcending and expand. We're not going to eliminate the ego. It's not going to happen. And I thought of a really simple way to put this. How long are you going to drive your car? Because driving your car is absolutely a left brain process. You're not going to drive your car from the right brain. Okay? How long do you plan to drive your car? If you plan to drive your car for the rest of your life, you're not going to lose your ego. Now, if you want to see what losing your ego looks like, what losing your left brain looks like, read Jill Taylor's book, My Stroke of Insight. Okay, I'm going to have a link below. It's an amazing book. I have an older video called 3 Books to Enlightenment. I think that book is so insightful in understanding the left brain and the right brain and what it means, the personality and the higher self. What does that really mean? What does that really look like in the brain? And Jill's story is just an amazing window into understanding that. So Jill Taylor, My Stroke of Insight, link below. Very good book. If you think you're going to get away with actually very seriously killing your ego completely, that's what you're talking about. And that's not what anybody is really talking about. And so it means they don't quite understand what they're talking about when they say, I'm going to kill my ego. What they're actually trying to say is, I'm going to do a disidentification process. So that's another video I have. A disidentification process is very powerful because it's helping us to transcend and let go momentarily of the lower self so that we can become identified with the higher self. And in a nutshell, that is samadhi. That is yoga. We are learning to transfer our identification from the lower self to the higher self. And so to do that, if you're wrapped up in your ego, of course you're not going to let go of it. But if you're holding it a little loosely, and then that will allow you to more easily let go and become identified with the higher self. But at no point did we kill it. We never killed it. Okay, never. Even when you go into a samadhi and the lower self is momentarily not there. Okay, it's out of your consciousness. It's not there anymore. It's totally gone. The body is gone. All sensations are gone. The breath is gone from your awareness. You're in the tranquil breath. You're deep into the freeze response. When that happens, it all winks out for the moment that you are in the samadhi. You're in the non-dual state. Even then, you're going to come back. And then you will say, everything is so fresh. Everything will be so fresh to you, so new, so easy, so alive, like never before. And so you say, I've been reborn. And that's why you have in Christianity and in the yogic world this terminology of being reborn. because they go into contact, maybe not even a samadhi, they just contact the higher self and they come back to their normal life and everything looks brand new. That's the renewal, that's the reborn. And the lower self is getting reprogrammed. Negative emotions and limiting decisions are getting wiped out through these processes of meditation, like Om Japa in the chakras and lowering the idol of the body, going into heart rate variability resonance. This is reprogramming everything in the lower self. And when you reprogram something, it seems brand new. And so you'll come back into the lower self, into the ego, which is absolutely appropriate when you're, for example, when you're driving a car or having a conversation, or we need to keep track of our kids, right? All of these are left brain processes, and we absolutely need them, but yet they will be fresh and new. So there's a renewal process going on. So renewal, transcendence, expansion of consciousness. These are absolutely appropriate. But this idea that you're going to kill the ego is a grave misunderstanding. And if you are new to the scene, then you might get a little bit confused. And that's why the reason for this video, and to expand our understanding of all of these things and make them a little more clear and a little more simple. So Forrest, how can I practice disidentification? Well, I have a video on it, which is very good. And you can also practice heart rate variability, resonance, go down into the low idle state, and begin to identify more and more with the 4 proofs and the feeling of peace and joy that starts to bleed into your life every single day. So I hope that you love this. If you did, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of you next